John Adams, a leader in the American Revolution, delegate to the First Continental Congress, and second President of the United States, has a broad legacy including rights and freedom Americans enjoy today and the separation of U.S. from Great Britain, as he was an influential voice in persuading Congress to declare independence. John Adams was born October 30th, 1735 in Braintree, Massachusetts, just south of Boston, to Susanna Boylston, who came from a leading family of merchants and doctors, and John Adams Sr., who was a local farmer and deacon for the first parish of Braintree. John had two siblings, Elihu Adams and Peter Adams. John Adams' career began at a young age at 16 when he was accepted into Harvard University and graduated 4 years later in 1775. During his time at Harvard University, he started to admire Benjamin Franklin as a political thinker from Pennsylvania who invented the lightning rod. After graduating, Adams moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, 30 miles west of Boston. Here he started to teach at a grammar school, but 3 years later, he quit and moved back to Braintree so that he could enroll in the Boston Bar and begin to practice law. Adams slowly built up his law practice and more significantly became to involve himself with the maelstrom of revolutionary politics and studied the law with great dedication. On October 25, 1764, 5 days before his 29th birthday, Adams married Abigail Smith, his third cousin and the daughter of the Congregational minister. They went on to have 4 children, Abby, John Quincy, Charles, and Thomas. During 1765, John Adams became to emerge as a leader when he opposed the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act required colonists to buy stamps and put them on 2 various types of legal documents. The Stamp Act in 1765 was an act of the Parliament of Great Britain that imposed a direct tax on colonies of British America and required that many printed materials in the colonies be produced on stamped paper produced in London. Adams became a frequent contributor to the local newspaper, voicing his work on the Stamp Act. This made John Adams one of the well-known lawyers in the area that worked on cases involving divorce, rape, wills, and trespass. Adams' most notable case was in 1770 when he defended the British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre. The Boston Massacre, known as the Incident on King Street by the British, was an incident on March 5, 1770, in which British Army soldiers killed 5 male civilians and injured 6 others. Even though he disagreed with British politics, he wanted to ensure the British soldiers got a fair trial. In 1774, John Adams was sent by Massachusetts to be a delegate to the First Continental Congress. The Continental Congress was a convention of delegates called together from the 13 colonies that became the governing body of the United States during the American Revolution. The American Revolution was a political battle that took place between 1765 and 1783, during which rebels in the 13 colonies rejected monarchy and aristocracy of the British government and overthrew the authority of Britain. The American Revolution was a result of a series of social-political transformations in American society. Starting in 1765, the Americans rejected the authority of British Parliament to tax them. Protests continued to escalate as the Boston Tea Party of 1773, and the British responded by imposing punitive laws, the Coercive Acts on Massachusetts in 1774. The other colonies rallied behind Massachusetts and set up a Congress to take charge. In 1777, Adams was appointed as Minister of France and was given the position of negotiating a treaty of peace known as the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris, signed in Paris by representatives of King George III of Great Britain and representatives of the United States of America on September 3, 1783, in turn ended the American Revolutionary War. In 1789, John Adams' most well-known legacy by many Americans is when he was in a presidential race to be the first president of the United States, but lost in a close battle to a close friend, George Washington. Getting the second most votes on the ballot meant Adams would become George Washington's vice president, the first vice president of the United States of America. Adams proved to be an effective vice president. As the president of the Senate, he was a strong supporter of various programs of the administration. Washington respected Adams and consulted with him frequently. In 1792, Washington was re-elected president and Adams was re-elected vice president. In 1796, after Washington had declined to run for a third time as president, Adams was elected president and Thomas Jefferson was elected vice president. John Adams was the first president that lived in the White House. President Adams' main achievement was keeping the United States neutral during the French Revolution and the wars in Europe that followed. To do this, John set up the U.S. Navy Department in 1798. He then assigns the role of Chief Commander to George Washington, who does a great job for about a year and a half and then suddenly dies at the age of 67. After Adams' 4 years of being president, he lost the renewal election to Thomas Jefferson. After that, John Adams' life slowly kept winding down until he died 26 years later on the same exact day as Thomas Jefferson. Even though John Adams' presidency was very significant and well known, it was not even close to how significant it was that John helped the United States get freedom from Great Britain. Before Adams died, he spent the remainder of his life at home on his farm. He retained a lively interest in public affairs, particularly when they involved the rising career of his son, John Quincy Adams, who would also become the 6th President of the United States of America. Adams divided his time between overseeing his farm and writing letters about his personal experiences as well as general issues of the day. John Adams died at the age of 90 in Quincy, Massachusetts, just a few hours after Jefferson's death on July 4, 1826. If it wasn't for John Adams voicing his opinion in the First Continental Congress and helping write the Declaration of Independence, we might still be under the rule of Great Britain today. The leadership and legacy that John Adams left behind was truly like no other, and can be seen today in the Declaration of Independence located in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. The legacy he left behind is still followed and used by every American today.